Hey everyone, welcome to another session of Manly Convos. Just to give you kind of a quick background on who we are and what we're about, I'm Corey Cummins. I'm the founder of Manly Convos, and I started this to really help destigmatize men's mental health. And we do this in two ways. One, we talk with men who have gone to therapy and seen the benefits of it. And we also talk to mental health professionals about specific topics associated to men. So today we're going to have a manly convo with George Watkins. So George, would you mind just giving a quick introduction of yourself, where you're from, your age, all that kind of jazz? That'd be great.
Yeah. So, my name's George Watkins. I'm 37 years old. I was born in Wales. My dad was on the RAF, so I got shipped around all over Europe as a young child. Come back to the UK when I was about 13 years old. We had like 5, 6 years up in Melton Mowbray, where my family essentially moved to and still stay today. And I'm a marketing manager. I graduated university in 2010, so I've been in the marketing industry for 14 years essentially. And my hobbies generally, I like to keep busy. So I'm doing a lot of DIY, a lot of home brewing, a lot of foraging, and just trying to keep as active as possible. And I have a beautiful wife and two lovely dogs, and we are expecting. So we have a new arrival coming in the 1st of September.
Very nice. Well, I know about your skills with DIY because Tio, your wife, will send me photos of it, and I'm always like, "Wow, I really need to step up my game. I'm so useless." And I've had your beer, and so I've experienced these hobbies. So you're pretty good at it. I have none of these things, so I really need to figure it out to get better at life.
Oh,
But
bless
uh,
you.
but thanks for joining. So I would love to know, what kind of started your journey into therapy or mental health? Like, how'd you kind of jump into it, and where are you at now?
Yeah, so that's a really good question because I guess the main reason why I started to go to therapy was around public speaking of all things. And for me, I've always thought to myself, if I can just get over this hump, like obviously being in a marketing role, I generally thought that this is an area that I should be really good at by now. I should be able to actually confidently present, and I don't. I struggle. I get panic attacks. And I've tried several different things actually. To before I went to therapy, I do Toastmasters, which is an international club where you actually learn and reinforce public speaking and leadership skills. I've done several kind of outreaches where I've tried to learn how to kind of go through the process of actually presenting and feeling more comfortable in front of people. And actually, it was really the kind of encouragement or nagging, I don't know how you want to describe it, from my wife to say, actually, maybe you need to go into therapy because one of the things that she noticed about me is just really my mannerisms around a lot of different people. For example, when we have barbecues, barbecues, and we have people over, one of the things that I tend to do is just focus on the barbecue itself. I kind of hide in the shadows. I make sure that everyone's looked after. I make sure that everyone's having a great time. But when it actually comes to getting involved with engagements and conversations, I really leave that to Tio and, until I've had quite a few beers and then I'm a bit more relaxed and I can actually engage. But she started kind of finding these little things about me to say that you seem to kind of tuck yourself away, you hide yourself. And that kind of started getting me thinking, well, is this something related to, my public speaking? And I started therapy about 6, 7 weeks ago. And so far, I personally feel like I've got quite a lot out of it. And what it turns out that a lot of this kind of concern of this where I get panic attacks because of this public speaking does have a relation or a huge relation back to my experience as a child. I got bullied quite a lot. Not quite, a lot. And as a result, it's always kind of provided a little bit of hindrance in my confidence, and it's certainly exploded my anxiety levels. So there was a big kind of direct relationship to that. And doing the therapy has helped me a lot in a sense that I've started to see that myself, because it's quite hard sometimes to understand why you feel this way, and actually having someone who's impartial, who sits there and starts listening to you, and when you've kind of got everything out, she just, or at least my therapist is a female. She kind of just gives you that little bit of perspective that you think, oh, I never quite thought of it that way. And she's been helping me, like I said, over the last 6-7 weeks, which is pretty great. Yeah.
Great. Yes, I really appreciate the detail on that. It's really interesting on some of the things you learned. So I have a couple questions, especially I like that you've just started therapy, and this is something that a lot of people struggle to take that first step. And so how did you actually find your therapist? So what was your process to find the right person?
You know what? I'm pretty terrible when it comes to a real in depth. So my whole ethos is you try something on the cheap and cheerful, and if you like it, if you do it, then you always kind of upgrade, and you build on it. So for me, I guess I didn't also think it was going to help. I came into this with very little, you know, excitement, the fact that it was going to help solve any of the problems I might have. So for me, it was, well, where is it something local? How quickly can I get there and get back? So for me, it was really like location. So this is why I went. So there was a couple places in Italy, in Andover, and I went to this particular place because it was close. And I know that sounds pretty bad, but the idea is that I just really didn't think I was going to get anything out of it. But now that I have, I've also started to build a bond with my therapist, and I obviously want to continue. So, yeah.
So you said you started cheap and cheerful. So did you do something before you went in person?
No, this was my cheap and cheerful approach to seeing someone in person. So,
Got it. Okay.
yeah, I thought, well, if I really needed more help, then maybe I can call up Dr. Phil, and he can give me, per hour something more insightful. I don't know, but for me, it was really just like location, because you just don't think it was going to make a difference. So you just think, well, I don't want to take out too much of my day. I'm busy. There's a lot going on in my life, so I really didn't want to spend a couple of hours commuting there, commuting back. But like I said, I'm very glad that I've done it so far.
Great. And is there a certain type of therapist? Is it like CBT or talk therapy, or is there a certain type of kind of practice?
So it's really talk therapy.
Okay.
Now, initially, when I went in there, this is quite funny actually. When I went in there, there was this idea that there was like hypnosis that can be done. So
Hmm.
I kind of stepped in, going, right. So I've been told you can hypnotize me, so I can get over my fear of public speaking. She's like, well, that's not how it works. I was like, all right, okay. And that's when we started discussing about, unpacking the box just little bit by little bit, and, trying to understand where this root problem comes from. But yeah, she just, it's really talk therapy more than anything. I haven't gone into, she did provide me some recordings. I'm trying to think now of the meditation recordings, so
Okay.
things that I can use to listen to. But actually, I've done a lot of that in the past, and that was really for more of my stress levels. So there's some really great apps out there that allow you to do, 1 minute, 5 minute, 10, 15, 20 sessions of public speaking, of meditation. And I really like it. Breathing exercises are really, really good. But certainly, this is obviously just evolved with my mental state. It's helping me kind of unpack a lot of stuff that for years I've buried. I mean, it's no secret. Just like I've done a very, very good job of like packing like my past in a tiny little box that I really didn't expect to open, and now I'm opening because I need to. And I think one of the, I say one of the drivers was obviously to overcome my public speaking, but I think the other driver is certainly having just a little bit more of a mental stability and a bit more understanding of myself, and why sometimes I feel the way I do. for my child. I want them to understand, or I want them to be happy with the person I am, and I want to be more comfortable being able to understand my emotions better. And yeah, I guess that's another catalyst as well.
Well, first off, two things. Well, one, I first want to say it's amazing that you realize that you want to do something as well for your kid that's about to come out soon, because it's actually interesting. I've had this discussion with a friend of mine where he hasn't gone to therapy, but he's he's a British guy. He's had some typical things, struggles, and I'm very open about mental health. And I actually said this to him. I go, you should do this for the kid that you're going to have,
Mm.
because you're going to gift this kid the same things that you're dealing with, because you're not going to know how to deal with your emotions. Now, it didn't do anything, but it's really nice to hear that you came up with that, because that's where most of us get our stuff from. It's from our childhood. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my father was a big part of my childhood, in the sense that he was a miserable bastard when I was growing up. Me and him did not compute. He's a Scouser at heart, and he's generally had a hard life himself. I think he went into the RAF when he was 15. I think he lied about
oh
his
wow.
age, and he was there for I think 18 years. And he's a very regimented fellow. And I was actually talking about this the other day. Like the idea of like I'm a very much a person that likes to just keep busy all the time now. Well, when I was a kid, that wasn't necessarily the case. I like to watch a bit of TV on a Saturday morning or things like that. But like my father just didn't like the idea of that. So I still remember like when he used to come downstairs, I'll be literally afraid of him actually seeing me watching TV. So I'll switch the controls off, and I'm just sitting there allowing to walk past. So I really, I was very fearful, and sometimes my dad, to this day, I mean, I'm bigger than him now. He's certainly on his, he's a lot older, but today he can still give me a look, and everything tightens up, and I go completely silent. And the thing is, it was probably about 12 years ago. We did a father son thing, and what we actually ended up doing was taking my dad's mum from Liverpool down to Cornwall to stay with my dad's sister, my aunt, because she was there on her own for quite a few years, and we just thought the change of scene and being closer to family would be beneficial for her. And we packed all the stuff up, me and him, in a van, and we drove down there with her. And at one point, we stopped and we had a bottle of wine, and we had a kind of a heart to heart. And I asked the questions, just like, Dad, it's been really difficult, with our relationship, and our relationship got significantly better when I left the coop. So when I went to university, when I wasn't underneath his feet, that's where our relationship really grew. And I have a fantastic relationship with now. I can joke, and I can be very honest with him, and he's going through some stuff right now. He's actually going through cancer right now. So actually just being able to be completely honest with each other, we tell each other we love each other, it's really lovely.
Nice.
But back then it was obviously a different story, and I still remember, and I've got a terrible memory, but I still remember having this bottle of wine with him and kind of opening it up to him. And his response was, he understood, he knows he could be a hard ass. And his response was, well, you didn't have my father. And my granddad apparently was just a thousand times worse. And he really struggled, with having him as a father. When you think about it, it was what 1960s, in a very dodgy area in Liverpool, and it was a big struggle for him. So it almost feels like each generation, has its brunts. And like I said, one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that my son doesn't have those same problems and those relationship restrictions is if I can get my own, being and my own mental health kind of in a stable state. And like you said, understanding where these emotions come from and why.
No, I really appreciate that. So, one, for everybody listening, if they heard what Scousers, that's someone from Liverpool,
Yes.
because the only people in this country will know what that is. The two other questions. One, you said there's a couple of apps that you like and you recommend. What are the names of that? Just so people are listening, they could download them.
Oh, you know what? Simple Habit. That was my main go-to one. So Simple Habit.
Okay,
I can't remember the second one, but I will dig it out and maybe we can add it into the comments. But Simple
sure.
Habit, I really recommend. It's
Okay.
super easy to use, and actually, if you've got an Apple Watch, it's also on there as well. And it's just a fantastic app to use.
Great. And so I know that you said you started for public speaking and then it's kind of evolved and gotten to where it is. So you've only been 6, 7 weeks in. So I guess, how do you see your experience with, well, how's your experience been so far? It seems to be really good, but how do you see it going? Is this something that you're going to continue to do? And it obviously you seem to started with public speaking, but you actually go, okay, there's other things I want to work on. So I guess, how's it been so far and where do you see it kind of evolving?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think from an evolving standpoint, I certainly will be continuing to do this. I think a short-term goal, hopefully, would be having the mindset to be able to start public speaking. But certainly, I think there's a lot more to kind of discuss. For me, one of the hardest parts of my life was certainly around living in Melton Mowbray. It was just very, very challenging for me to fit in because certainly, I came in when I'm, 12, 13 years old. In Melton Mowbray, it's a very traditional town. There's a lot of cliques, a lot of family generations, and we obviously came in, and there was a set of social rules that I didn't quite understand, and I truly never fit in. So during those years, it was a lot of, and also I'm also very tall. I'm 6 foot 4, but I was a tall teenager as well, and really, it was just hard for me to, make some proper friends. I was bullied all the time. And on top of that, I am dyslexic, and
Mm.
it never really got caught, my dyslexia at an early age. So, throughout, exams, everything like that, I was just constantly failing them because I just obviously didn't have the necessary support to help me get through those exams. So between being bullied, challenging with friends, challenging with social norms, struggling at school, it was really just a hot pot of anxiety, frustrations, and just really being uh, just just sad and unhappy. And there was also, I think the peak was, talking to my mum about, suicide and stuff like that. And obviously that kind of changed, how the school helped solve some of these problems with me.
Mm.
But then, really, for me, it was just trying to get out of Melton Mowbray as quickly as I possibly could. And after I did my GCSEs, I went to Loughborough, which was great. So I commuted to Loughborough and back for my college, and then finally I went to University of Gloucestershire in Cheltenham, and I had 4 fantastic years there. And it was a huge difference. And I think university was great for me because it was literally just and college as well was a hot pot really. Everyone comes in, that social dynamic all kind of is reset. And I was just myself, and I also got the support there as well from my dyslexia. And after working hard, I managed to get a first. So I was, pretty chuffed with that. But certainly coming back to those difficult years, and that's kind of what we've been essentially talking about during therapy. Maybe you don't, because like I said before, I've got a bad memory, but when it comes to emotional impact and the emotional toll that actually has, you still sense it. It doesn't necessarily have to be connected to an emotion, to a memory. And I see that sometimes when, I get maybe frustrated with, someone on a walk. I walk my dogs, and there's another gentleman who's got um, three very large dogs, and they kind of sometimes attack one of my dogs. And, I appreciate it's just one of those things, at the end of the day. But for me, I get very, very worked up. because straight away I'm thinking, I'm escalating in my head, because of this kind of confrontation almost. And a big reason for this is the kind of emotional toll I had as a child. And these are some of the things that we're unpacking in therapy. It's to say, right, well, have you stopped to think about these emotions? This is one of the tools that I've been doing, is that when I do get like that, I think to myself, right, well, there's got to be a reason why you're feeling like this. And generally, when it kind of boils down to, it's usually anxiety, it's usually fear, it's usually some of these things that, I try to pack away so much over those years at school. So this is kind of what we've been kind of dealing with, is unpacking that, and it's certainly helping. Like for example, a couple of weeks ago, which was a pretty special moment for me, was this. I kind of described my story in a very short and narrow way, which was, up until university, I was struggling, failing, and all the points that I mentioned earlier on. And then during university, it kind of changed. And then there was a particular moment when I was on my placement year. I wasn't doing very well at the first half of it. I was still had the university mindset. And during that time, I got an absolute bollocking because I missed a flight for a convention, as you quite rightly know, you should get a bollocking for. And I still remember my manager at the time sitting me down and said, "Look, you can either go two ways here. You can, come in at 9 o'clock or 3 minutes past nine, like you've been doing all year, or you can come in, earlier, and you can just try and make a big difference and trying to make a change." And I still remember walking out of that meeting going, and I was really, really irate, really annoyed that he gave me these two options. And initially I thought to myself, well, you know what, I am going to come in late. I'm going to prove that, they're not in charge of me and all this type of stuff, something immature person would potentially think about. But then I started thinking about it and I said, well, why not? Why not just try it? And in the end, I got up that next day, and I think I'd come into work for about 8:05, and everyone was just like, "Oh, you're in. That's amazing." And that was kind of the moment for me, that when I noticed that if I worked hard and I, came in early and did things in a positive light, I got positive praise. So then, ever since then, all I've been doing, because I'm a bit of a workaholic, is just working constantly. And my therapist mentioned it. It's a term they call pig-headedness, not in a negative way that we typically think about it, but what they mean is that you just smash through barriers as hard and as fast as you can without really truly understanding the emotional impact that is going on inside you. So you get to this point, and where I've got to this point now, where I've just kept going and going and going. I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I start work, and between the day I get a walk with the dogs, and I get maybe a swimming session, and then basically I'll work until 6 or 7 that evening. So it was like just this constant work that I'm trying to resolve as well, because I need to have a work-life balance. And again, when the child comes, I want to be spending time with them and not having to dedicate my time to my work, and more importantly, have all this anxiety associated with it. Because this was the other thing that kind of came out from these discussions was, well, what's wrong if you fail at presenting? What happens if you don't deliver a perfect presentation? And then it kind of come back to, well, people might think I don't do a good job, and if they don't think I do a good job, they're not going to have this image that I've created, for these last 15 years of being all positive, all great, which was the polar image that I've essentially tried to hide when I was growing up as a child. So it was this kind of whole duality of like these two selves, one I've been trying to hide away and the other one that I'm trying to portray. But this one that I'm trying to portray is essentially a perfectionist, because there's no ideology around having, a failure in that camp. So again, these are some of the things that I never would quite have worked out myself, but through therapy, it's helping me understand this better and actually helping me bring these two worlds closer together, so I can feel, that it's okay to fail, and, I'm not going to get kicked out of my job because of one little bit of thing. And it's okay that, maybe I don't do a 12 or 14-hour shift a day. So it's these little things that really are helping, with and through therapy.
No, I appreciate that. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to a lot of things you just talked about, from, childhood with being bullied, and also with being, a workaholic and compartmentalizing things. So I really appreciate you kind of talking about that. I guess with that, something that people always ask, they go, well, how do you know when you're done with therapy? And I have my opinion on it, but you're kind of just starting it. So I'd love to know what you think. Like, when do you think maybe you would stop or anything like that?
Phew, that's a really good question. I guess in the long term, I truly don't know. I'm also in a position where I can obviously afford therapy, and I appreciate there's lots of people out there that might not be able to. So from my perspective, I can obviously use this tool, use this process to help overcome and resolve, some of the things that I'm dealing with. I guess it's the case of, how deep does the rabbit hole go? But I would like to think, maybe, if I put a time on it, hopefully in the next year, I'd like to be in a position where maybe I don't necessarily need, a weekly or a bi-weekly session. Maybe it's, once a quarter just to check in. Maybe it's a case that I probably will always have some type of therapy, in one way or another. I mean, let's be honest, I'm going to be facing a bunch of new challenges when the baby's due, and there's, fatherhood that I'll have to contend with. So there's going to be lots of other reasons why actually talking to someone who is completely agnostic from your life, and actually just having someone who can give you a honest and neutral opinion is going to be, very beneficial for my own thought process and my mental health.
No, that's great. Yeah, it's a great answer. I always say there's no answer, but I do tell people going to a couple therapy sessions is not enough, because I do know a lot of
Yes,
people like, oh, I've been to a couple therapy sessions. I figured it out. I was like, no, you didn't. Yeah, yeah. It's like it's saying you're trying to get fit and you go to the gym a couple times and you're done. I go, it doesn't work like that. So
absolutely.
yeah, no, it is interesting to hear it. So what you were said earlier, that you had some opinions and thoughts on what therapy was. What were those preconceived notions of therapy? And how has it been different?
Yeah, I thought it was for loonies. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, it's that typical. You see it on TV and film, and there's this kind of notion of what it is, and it's completely, opposite. They say, funny enough, they say same thing about pregnancy. Like when you see it on TV, it's completely different to actually what it is, and what it truly is on the day. But I think, yeah, for me, it was. I mean, there is that one side of it. The other side was I knew in my heart that I would have to start unpacking some of this stuff that I locked away. When I walked in there, the first thing I said, well, I heard about, this ability to use hypnosis. And she said, no, that's not the case. And that was one of the reasons why I kind of went the first time, because I just thought, well, maybe there's a quick win. And for the last couple of years, I've actually talked with my wife about, having to speak to someone. And actually, one of the concerns I had was unpacking this thing, and unpacking, what it's all about. And in, and again, a big part of this is my wife. She's my biggest cheerleader, and she's been really great, kind of encouraging me to this point. And she used to say to me all the time, like the only times I ever got any type of deeper emotion from you, George, is when you're, several beers in, and you're just about to fall asleep, and I might be able to get like a little bit of information from you, but apart from that, you're kind of a brick wall. And actually, she's definitely said that since I've gone to therapy, I'm a lot more open with, how I feel, and what's going on in my mind. So she's already seen the benefit of it, just for our relationship alone. But I think, yeah, for me, I knew that I had to start unpacking things. Now, the nice thing is, it wasn't as scary as I thought it was. When I thought we'd have to unpack all about my childhood, I assumed that we were going to open up a box and it was all going to come out, but it wasn't the case at all. They kind of make it all nice and slow. You go at your own pace. And what you tend to find, though, or at least what I felt, was that I very quickly started to find a lot of release from actually getting some of this off my chest. You know, when you bury it for so long and you know rarely talk about it, you know, it's actually quite uh, cathartic. No,
Cathartic.
cathartic. Thank you. To actually kind of bring that out and bring that into the open. So yeah, I think for me, they were really my two areas of it's loony people and I'll have to unpack stuff. But it wasn't as bad by no means than it, you know, what I thought really.
No, that's great. So thank you for that. So appreciate everything. So there's a couple of questions I always like to ask people towards kind of the end of this. And
Yeah.
so first one is, are there any books that you've read or maybe even any podcasts or anything that you recommend that around mental health that kind of help you dip your toes in, or anything that you've enjoyed reading that you recommend to people?
Um, well, for me, where I went to help a little bit with my mental health was actually Buddhism. So there was
Okay.
I've always been interested with the religion of Buddhism and the Four Noble Truths, and I really like the philosophy behind it, and I like the fact that meditation was a big part of that. So I actually explored a few books around that. One of my favorite ones because it's nice and easy to read. I think it was Buddhism Made Simple. And that was something that I really enjoyed and I really kind of looked into. I think from a podcast perspective, or generally from a specific mental health book, I probably didn't really explore many of them. Like I said, I was a little bit apprehensive to the whole thing before going into therapy, so I really didn't probably do my due diligence. But I think I have gone onto NHS forums to kind of feel out kind of some of these things, and yeah, I like to think that I was doing almost everything right. You know, there are tools that people encourage you to do, exercise, you know, meditation as well. And I was kind of doing these things, but really for me, it was that unpacking piece that, you know, actually just speaking to someone personally, which really kind of helped and made all the difference for me.
Great. Well, Buddhism is really interesting. So why did you read into Buddhism? Like, what was it about that kind of helped you out? Because I think Buddhism is really interesting. I was actually just in Sri Lanka, so I just learned about it,
Okay.
and it is
Yeah,
pretty interesting. They all seem very happy, very
They,
nice.
they, they, they do.
So
Yes, they very much do. Well, I think it's for me, Buddhism is all around the idea of you know understanding the internal self. So it's not a case of worshipping a you know an all powerful being like a god or multiple gods. It's really about oneself. And I always stick with this lovely analogy around a man walking barefooted, you know, on the world, and he's complaining about his feet and that they're sore. So he either had two options. It was either leather the whole of the world, so his feet are a lot more comfortable, so he can walk on the leather and it's more comfortable, or he can just leather his shoes or leather his feet. So it's this idea of if you try and, you know, if you try to change the world around you, it's very difficult to do. It's almost impossible to do because you know you have no real impact on that. You have no influence on that. But what you do have is the influence on yourself. So the idea is if you can look after yourself, if you can better yourself in that way, then you're going to be a happier person. And I see this all the time in. So I'm not on social media, with the exception of LinkedIn. And for me, one of the reasons why I'm not on social media is because of this idea that people try to portray their best self on social media. And that's all fair and good. Everyone has their right to do that. But what I think it also does, it impacts other people, you know, scrolling and looking at, you know, what they're showing. And actually, I was that because I was on, you know, Facebook and some of the and Twitter and things like that, but Facebook in particular. And I remember a couple of years of graduation, I was, you know, happy with my lot, and I've always been happy with my lot, and that's probably why, again, I'm, I always kind of gravitate towards the idea of Buddhism. But I remember just scrolling, and when one of my friends, Rory, was living in Dubai, and he was doing all this type of stuff. He was following his dreams, and obviously in Dubai, there's just a lot of you know, big stuff. It's a lot of flashy stuff. And obviously
Yeah,
when
very
he's there, he's
materialistic.
exactly. And, you know, his page always looked very materialistic, but very kind of bling. And I looked at it on occasion, and then there was just that slight kind of like anxiety, like why does he have all that and I don't? And it's only till I start realizing, well, no, I don't know what he's got, you know. And I was like, well, this is really bad. This is really negative because essentially I'm looking at what other people are doing, and they're only giving me, you know, their best. You know, best side. They're not really kind of going into the details. So I really just took it on myself and said, well, there's nothing really positive in my eyes that I can really glean from social media. So I kind of completely took that away. And you see it all the time though, like, you know, with young children and particularly young girls, when they see these ideas of beauty, and they're trying to kind of meet that expectation instead of actually thinking, well, they're, you know, happy and beautiful themselves. So it's this idea of self, and I think when it comes back to Buddhism, it's all about nurturing your true self and being happy with your lot. I mean, there's nothing, you know, I think it was No Woman, No Cry. Bob
Bob
Marley.
Marley.
Yeah, so I still remember an interview with Bob Marley when someone asked him, you know, are you rich? You know, are you a rich man? And he said, well, what do you mean by rich? You know, I'm loved and very happy and I'm very blessed. And in my eyes, I'm a very rich man for that reason. But if you're referring to money, you know, why does that matter? And again,
Mm.
it's having that mentality to say, well, all this materialistic, all this ideology of money and wealth, it can mean something to someone, but it's always false and hollow. And if you're actually just happy and contented with yourself, then you're going to be a happy and contented person for the rest of your life. And I think that's a good point to stress when it comes to mental health. And that's one of the reasons why I think that connection and why I was attracted and am attracted to the idea of Buddhism.
No, great. Yeah, there's a lot I could say to that, especially around young girls being on social media. It just makes me very sad. I was listening to a podcast in the morning. I forgot which one, but yeah, I was talking about how skincare products, their new biggest growing target market is like this like young teenage
Oh, it's
girls who like they
terrible.
never used to touch this stuff, and now we're like using all these serums and lotions and all this stuff because of Instagram.
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
bless
is.
them.
It is. Yeah. So, two more questions. So,
Okay.
if you died tonight, what would you regret not doing?
Um, you know what? I think for me, the biggest regret not doing. So the biggest regret not doing. So essentially, I've missed out on something that could eventually happen, as opposed
Yeah, yeah.
to yeah. So I guess for me, it would be raising my child. You know, I can't wait to have a child. I can't wait to do so many different things. Like I'm a massive geek at the end of the day. I can't wait to do like D&D with them. I can't wait to take them on long walks. I can't wait to do arts and crafts. I mean, I love art and I like to paint. So I can't wait to share those experiences. And for me, I mean, the best weekend I can ever have is just, you know, going for a walk, going to the pub, and just spending time with my family. I mean, I know it's really, really boring for a lot of people out there, but like for me, you know, that's what I truly, truly love. And I'm a very happy person when it comes to those types of things. And I think that's one thing I would regret every day is not being able to see my family grow and just have a happy and contented life.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Actually, I think it's a great thing. You know, if you're going to have, I think there's a lot of people who probably don't take on that sentiment when having kids. And if you're going to have kids, that's the sentiment you want to have going into it. So it sounds like you have the right headspace. So I think that's a great thing and a beautiful thing. So I wouldn't be ashamed about it.
No, no, absolutely, yeah, and you know, one of the things that obviously in the run up to having a child, you do start reading a lot of books, and I think that's a really interesting point. You know, it's so hard to raise a child, and you know, we're quite generally quite old parents. Myself and Tio, you know, I'm 37, she's just a year younger than me, and you know, for us. we wanted to be in that stage, where we were comfortable and happy to actually have a child. And I think the tradition, so the old adage of new house, new job, and new baby really did come into full effect, because last year, I got a new job, then I got a new house, and then obviously we're having a new baby this year. So it's a lovely trifecta.
Love it, love it. And then last thing here. So I think I know what you're probably going to say, but at the next couple of years of a chapter, what would that chapter be?
Well, yes, certainly it's definitely the child and doing everything possibly with them. But I think if I was going to say something personal about myself, I like to use my hands. I'm a big DIY guy. So one of the things that I would like to do at the back of the house is build a little summer house. So it just kind of oversees the field. That field might turn into houses in a couple of years' time, so I've got to think about that. So that's one thing to take into account. But certainly just doing a couple of projects outside would be something I'm geared towards over the next couple of years. I'm a big gardener as well, so just growing lots of vegetables, and again sharing that experience with my child is something that I'm very much looking forward to. Well, admittedly, my wife will be probably sitting on the couch watching some TV, just relaxing while I've got the child, and we're going to go around the garden and do all the outdoor chores.
Well, hopefully, maybe one day you can show me some DIY because they're pretty much the basics. Actually, I'm good with electronics, and
Okay.
I can hang frames and art and stuff like that. But everything else, useless, absolutely useless. My brother got all the genes, and for that, he can build everything. And I'm like my dad. It's like just pay someone to do it because if I do it, it's gonna break. It's so sad.
It,
It's really so
it, it,
sad.
it's all about doing little projects and building yourself up. And there's no exception for a good tool. If you've got the right tool for the right job, it's like 1,000 times easier.
Yeah. I appreciate that. That's what you're saying is the reason. So I'll take that as the excuse, is that I don't have the right tools in my flat. So, but I appreciate you joining. It's been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate you
Absolutely.
being open and candid and honest. And I'm sure a lot of people listening will relate to some of the things you've talked about. So hopefully, someone will get value out of this discussion.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, I'm very happy to contribute and happy to tell my story. So thank you very much, Corey, for setting this up.
Perfect. No, thanks, George.